Mark and Kate Bowen own Meadowdale Farm in Putney and join us today to talk about farmers and the future of farming in our state. Kate wrote an insightful essay titled "The Conquest of Rural Vermont," describing how heavy regulations, high financial losses, and creeping anti-farming attitudes have made life in Vermont challenging for farmers. Kate, I love this line in your essay where you talk about how they appropriate aspects of rural culture like shiplap and plaid and decor for rustic weddings, but they are not interested in watching you spread manure or see your barn light come on at 4 a.m. when it's time to milk. So who are they and what is their end goal for Vermont?
Well, I think as we've talked about before, and we have discussed the idea of neo-feudalism in Vermont, there's a real NIMBY aristocracy, and we see that a lot, especially around the urban centers like Burlington area and at Montpelier, where there's a growing movement of folks who are concentrating power and kind of co-opting the image of Vermont, but they're not listening to what the people want. And I always describe it as sort of the Downton Abbey effect, where you have an upstairs and a downstairs class of people, and the upstairs class doesn't want to see what the lowly peasants are doing. And so a lot of Vermont agrarian society has become part of that plebeian servant class.
Okay, and by NIMBY you mean not in my
backyard. Yep.
So more and more local farms are getting auctioned off. Last year we learned that a suicide hotline had been set up for dairy farmers. So I think that there is a corrosive despair and a profound sense of isolation that can be found everywhere. Kate, could you speak to the sense of isolation in Vermont's epidemic of loneliness?
Yeah, I would say that that's rampant, and I think as social media usage has gone up, the isolation factor has also grown. Vermont always had a real tradition of pre-TV and pre-electricity of families getting together and playing cards with their neighbors and getting together for square dances and things like that. And the breakdown of our culture and society that's left us has left people very isolated, very alone, very disconnected. And as families leave because of the economy, it further prevents people from building that authentic level of community.
And so one idea or a theme that's been on my mind a lot is, and I want to ask you about that, Mark, is what is the most toughest challenge that you face as a father raising a boy in Vermont today?
I think one of my biggest concerns is that he won't get the same opportunities that I did in relating to farming. That, you know, there's more and more taxes and fees and regulations being imposed, and it just makes farming harder and harder to do in Vermont. And at some point it's going to be just unsustainable from a profit standpoint and to make a living farming in Vermont, and that I think that will bear out in his generation.
And so cultural misconceptions about farmers will prevail, and then maybe we'll just have a mini Burlington all over, and we'll lose the authentic rustic nature and the rural character of Vermont.
I think we've already lost it.
We've already lost it?
I think so.
So there's no hope? Do we have any hope? Can we end it with a hopeful note for our viewers?
I think if the everyday blue-collar worker, people who love Vermont, they love their families, they want a better future for their grandchildren, now's the time to stop being asleep at the wheel and to start contacting legislators relentlessly, to be voting and to make sure that your neighbors are voting, going to town meeting, going to select board meeting, running for office. Vermont legislators need to start listening to the people. When I contact legislators, you know, politely and kindly, you're often brushed off. I don't feel like they're actually listening, because every time I go to the gas station or grocery store and I speak with people who are the silent workers of Vermont, the plow truck drivers and cashiers, and they feel the way I feel. So I know that this is not a solitary journey that just we're on.
Right, and that's very important, that we are not alone, but we need to make our voices heard.
Yes.
Mark and Kate, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.